Bonjour à tous, bienvenue à la conférence de presse de Canada Soccer. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Canada Soccer's press conference with the women's national team head coach Bev Priestman. Please make sure to raise your hand if you have a question and we will get to you. Let's get started with John.
Hi, Bev. Good to see you again. Thanks as always for taking the time to speak to us. Just wanted to get your sort of, maybe you just give us some insight into, the squad selection. There's some notable absences on this team with Ashley Lawrence and Jade Riviere and a few others and some newcomers. Just get a general sense of, how you put this team together.
Yeah, I think, you can't hide from the fact that it's missing some key, probably starters. You've got Jade, Vanessa, Deanne all injured, and Ash, due to personal reasons, will also be missing this trip. So, four big names who've been a big part of the squad are missing. But I think principally for me, I opted to approach this tour with the realities of that. We left it as long as we can, obviously to try and have people ready and all the rest of it. But I think principally I've opted to assess some new faces, some players I haven't seen in for a while. There was a group that I had in Toronto in only just in June, and a lot of them are just starting back now with clubs. So, I think this far away from a World Cup, it makes sense to use this to assess some players in the environment. It's a long way to go to Australia. And for that, use that opportunity to see some new players. I think, overall, I think since the Olympic Games, we've assessed a total of 20 other players outside of that squad between now and then. 13 of them brand new and across 6 different professional leagues. So when you talk about, trying to evolve a squad and looking short-term to World Cup, but also Olympic Games, I think what it shows, you look at the likes of a Clarissa at Celtic, it shows that, any players who are out there, who've missed out, who haven't been assessed in our environment, we're willing to look at them. And I think it's a big part of what we need to do because of that. You normally have that down year between. We don't have that. So windows are important to assess some players in the environment.
Hi, Bev. Good to speak to you again. Just following up on the squad selection, wanted to ask about Gabby Carl and Evelyn Vienne. Both are having strong seasons in Sweden, left off the roster again. Can you just talk a bit about that decision and maybe what more you would like to see from them to get back on the squad?
Yeah, listen, it's nothing that they're not doing. I think that I only seen them in June, and from that they had their season break in Sweden and have just started up. Probably, I think it was 2 games in when I selected the roster. So it's not necessarily anything they're not doing. I think I sort of shared what I felt that they needed to do to make that CONCACAF roster. I think, that hasn't changed, but obviously I'm watching them very closely and they are doing well. But I think when you bring players into the environment, you're comparing apples with apples in an international standard and setting. So, working with them on specific feedback as to what they needed to do. But I think if I go back to, I had an option of, do I see some new faces? Has much changed since June because players haven't been in club really in terms of a break. And so I just felt that, I needed to assess some new players. I think there's some positional gaps that we need to look at. And that's based on, why I've chosen some other players to come in. So it's nothing that they're not doing. I think it's, I think it's a total of 4 games now, but at the time of making the roster selection, 2 games in, I may as well see some players that I haven't seen in our environment for some time or some brand new faces.
Hey, Bev. Just a quick question for me this afternoon, just looking at, some of those new faces that John and Megan were talking about a couple of seconds ago. Obviously, a very new face to the national team fold, at least in terms of being named to a roster, is Celtic's Claire Solarisi. Obviously, some of the, deeper corners of the fan base have obviously seen her play at Memphis for a long time and been, seen her production there. They've seen her move to Valor in Iceland, and then further on to Celtic, where it seems to be that she seems to be set for a bigger role this season there as well. Just wondering what you saw in her to include in a roster this time around.
Yeah, I think, again, with the likes of a Deanne missing, etc., I think what I see from Clarissa, she probably could play across multiple positions, winger, 9, maybe the 10. She played wing back there as well. So when you talk about versatility towards top tournament rosters, I think that opens a door. But I think individually what I've seen from her, she's got pace, she's direct, she scores goals. And like I say, it's really difficult, I think, to assess players in their club environment until you bring them in. And I felt that I'd seen enough after watching, you know, across 2 camps now. I've sort of assessed her footage and what she's doing at Celtic, spoke to some people in Scotland, etc. So I just felt that she can bring a direct, dynamic goal scoring ability that, you know, we'll only know when we get her in our environment as to how that compares internationally. But again, I'm all for giving players a shot who are doing well in professional leagues.
Appreciate it, Bev, and good luck.
Thank you.
And hey, Bev, good to see you again. Just want to ask, now that you've had a couple of months to evaluate W Championship, where do you think this team can still improve in this long lead up to the World Cup that you address? Obviously, you're going to get the flight experience, the jet lag experience, and then pretty cool to play in a brand new stadium in just a few weeks here. But where are the weaknesses or the areas of improvement that you still want to see improved on now that you've reflected on the US game?
Yeah, I think what I did see, if I overall reflected the bigger picture, I think what you've seen in that championship is goals are coming from many different positions. I think midfielders, you know, the likes of a Julia getting in the box, scoring goals, important. You had fullbacks, different positions scoring goals, and we've added that sort of, I guess you could say, that fluidity and freedom. I think where I'm at now is the tactical evolution of the group. I think, you know, I was recently at a FIFA conference and our out of possession work got a lot of attention in that setting. And I think we've got to keep evolving that and not be sort of predictable. And I think you've seen a little bit of that in CONCACAF. We changed shape a little bit in the US game, but continue to evolve ourselves tactically, which might get different players in more positions. And I think that's something, my reflection on CONCACAF is I give a lot of players time, but I think to even have more options in positions, I think that's something I want to put attention on. But I felt, you know, in that US game, and the players would say the same, I don't think it was our best showing. I think it's a reflection of tournament football. I think we hadn't really been tested. And then you go and play, you know, a US who I thought, to be fair to them, were looking much better. So, yeah, we won't get that back for a while. And, you know, we'll take that with us when we move forward. But I think, yeah, I feel like we're moving forward. It's just a case now of, you know, cementing a roster, trying to see who could be in that 23 come next summer. And then tactically evolving some things, and even just, you know, trying to work on being the fittest team at the World Cup and some little things that I think can make all the difference. Because you look at the Euros recently, the standard of the game's gone up again. Fit teams, tactically organised. The standard of the women's game now, there's no longer sort of 3-0 victories in between tier one, first in the world, third in the world. It's very, very tight. And those margins, all those little margins, I think, are the things that we're going after, not necessarily huge wholesale changes.
Quick follow-up, if I may, just on the Matildas and the fact that we're going to have Christine Sinclair and Sam Kerr potentially on the same pitch together. It's for the diehards who will go out and watch the WSLs and see Sam on a regular basis, obviously another Ballon d'Or nomination, but to coach against her and to see even your younger players get to see a top pro at work, what's that opportunity and experience going to be like for them?
Yeah, listen, she's an absolute handful. And I think, you know, there is some realities around the players that we've lost, and that's going to be a challenge. But what a great opportunity for any player to step in and show what they can do. I know that the players who do play against her will thrive. For Jessie, you know her inside out, and Kadisha will be defending against her week in, week out at Chelsea. I got to watch the games recently. Yeah, she's a top player that we have to pay respect to. But I think we also, when we're at our best, have a top back line that I think can deal with Sam Kerr. But I've got no mistakes. I've scouted this Australia team well now for a few weeks, and they're a top side. I've got to say they look physical. They remind me of a US type game, and we'll have to defend well against them, but also they're a great defensive team too. So it should be two incredible games that are only going to help us, because our experience against Australia in my time hasn't been there, and they'll be a great team to play against, you know, should we get them in the World Cup too.
Thank you, Bev, for doing this. I have two questions. The first is your thoughts on the results in the under 20 tournament in Costa Rica.
Yeah, I can answer that one. So I obviously got to see a couple of those games. I think the context of the results would be that for me personally is there's some players that are ready to come up the system. You see that with the likes of a Simi, a Jade Rose and Zoe, who will choose to leave at home because of the amount of time she spent on the road with us and the under-20s. So I think that group, you know, I feel for them because they've had very little put into them. You know, they were a result of a COVID sort of group that never had a cycle. And then you talk about, we've got to find a way to get more games and fixtures and investment in our youth national team programs. I think, you know, that's a reality with a budget that we work with. I think you've seen the improvement from game 1 to game 2. I personally was there for them 2 games, and I did think there was an improvement, but imagine where they could be. So results for me are producing players for the women's national team. But I think to do that, you've got to accumulate caps now, both for national team and for professional leagues. And I think that group we're playing against players playing at PSG week in, week out, and we've got players in NCAA. So I think in many ways, I don't want to say it was expected, but that group took a step forward to qualify for the first time since 2016. But there's a gap. I think that's a reality, and that gap can be bridged through investment and through a domestic or players playing overseas in professional leagues week in, week out.
And my second question is, Chloe with Benfica has moved on to the next round in the Champions League. So can you talk about, you know, her? She seems very stable there now, but would you like her to move on to another league, or just, you know, your thoughts on her play of late?
Yeah, I think, you know, Chloe I know she had some options on the table, but I think Benfica will do anything to keep Chloe because she scores goals for them. And I was recently with the Portugal coach, and again, he was raving about Chloe, which was fantastic to see. I think Chloe, there's more in Chloe for us. And I think, you know, I would have liked to play Chloe more probably in CONCACAF qualifiers. So she knows what she needs to do at our level to keep progressing, but I'm excited. I think what we all see in Chloe is probably just the start. And that's the exciting factor of it. But she scores week in, week out for Benfica, and it's served her well so far. And I think she knows she now wants to push, and, you know, she's got that finisher role with us, but she would like to see more minutes and impact and goals for Canada.
Hey, Bev, hope you're well. Just one for me. Simi Awujo, obviously, you know, stood out at the U20 World Cup. She brings some youth to the midfield, certainly something you've said in the past you're looking for. I mean, how important is it to bring someone like her profile into the team, and where do you view her long-term for your side?
Yeah, I'm excited. I think, again, it's only the start for Simi. You talk about investment. She's had very, very little. I think, you know, maybe 2 5-day camps with the under-20s in a World Cup now, that if that's what she's had put into her, imagine what she can be. I think her profile is quite different. You know, tall, it was very dangerous in the box, travel with the ball very, very well. So quite different to what we've probably got, or a blend of a couple of people that we currently have in our midfield. So when you talk about a new profile, I think she could score goals in the box. I'm excited about what Simi can be, but, you know, at the same time, I know it's just the start and it's going to take some investment and some work around that. She's still at NCAA, but I am very excited about what Simi could be.
Hi, Bev. Thank you very much for doing this this afternoon. I was wondering if you maybe have an update on Vanessa Giles. I don't think she's played since qualifiers. Did she get hurt in qualifiers, and how is her hip doing? Thank you.
Yeah, so Vanessa's been a sort of an ongoing problem. We had to manage her coming into qualifiers, and then, you know, going out of qualifiers, she's deloaded with her club. Actually have a club call again today. So yeah, hers is not, I wouldn't say it's a long-term issue. I think it's a management issue that we're working through. I think Jade Rivier's could be a longer term issue that we're working through. Deanne's returning. So there's a few things, and I think it's the reality of where this group's been. They've had an Olympic Games, a grueling schedule. You know what it's like with the travel and tournaments, but I think we've got to look at the bigger picture. So I expect, hopefully, to see Vanessa, you know, returning soon. I know she's returned to work, but just isn't ready yet for us in this window. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This will conclude today's press conference with Canada Soccer's women's national team head coach, Bev Priestman. Thank you, Bev. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.